Welcome back to my channel. It's my TV show recaps, or if you're new here, welcome. I do recaps on TV shows on Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and also Bravo. I also talk about some hot topics, so if you're interested, please subscribe. So we're diving straight into part one of the three-part reunion of Salt Lake City Housewives, and I'm not sure why Bravo decided to keep this reunion as a three-part, especially when we all know Mary isn't gonna be there. Mary is one of the housewives that has an interweaving plot line with everyone on the cast. I'm not sure how we're going to parse through everyone's storyline when one of the key members is not in the reunion. So before the reunion officially started, Bravo had to put this disclaimer up regarding Jenny's social media posts. Now, this was a quick reminder to the audience that the reunion was taped before the social media hoopla regarding Jenny came out. So we start off with Andy doing the usual, meeting the women in their trailers. So we meet up with Meredith, and this is where we find out that Meredith has actually seen the footage of Lisa talking smack about her during the hot mic moment. Another part that sticks out to me is when he met with Jen Shah. So he kind of met with Jen Shah while she was in her makeup trailer to tell her, hey, Erica Jane did not get the questions before the reunion, so you're not going to get the questions either. I guess there was a rumor where the blogs were saying that Andy had briefed Erica Jane on the questions before the reunion. Now, even if he did brief Erica Jane on the questions, I doubt Andy or Bravo would ever extend the same courtesy to Jen Shah. So we pan out to see how the ladies are sitting. I actually like the set design. I think it's really cool. We see that Lisa Barlow is sitting next to Andy, and so is Jen Shah. Now, we all know from watching Bravo reunions that these two seats next to Andy are the most coveted by the ladies. I actually think that Lisa Barlow earned her seat position this year, because even though I personally don't like Lisa Barlow, I feel like she has done the job of pot staring throughout the entire season. Now, is she a good pot starer? I absolutely don't think so. She doesn't have the finesse that Lisa Vanderpump has. Lisa Barlow is more obvious and a little bit harsh in the way she stirs a pot, and I just really don't like her. What surprises me is Meredith's position on the couch. I really don't know why she's sitting at the end of the couch. I feel like she brought a lot of drama, and a lot of the ladies use Meredith's storyline as part of their storyline. I definitely don't think that Jenny needed to be in the middle of the couch. I feel like even though we didn't know that at this point that Jenny had sketchy and racist posts on social media, Jenny by herself just didn't bring enough to the show to warrant her sitting second position to Lisa Barlow, who is seated at the first position. So Andy then moves on to Whitney, saying that, Mary isn't here. Mary was kind of upset that you called her a predator. And Whitney then says, oh, I wish Mary was here. To me, Mary made the absolute right move by not being at the reunion. She pulled these women's storyline right up from under them. Whitney and Heather probably thought Mary was going to be there so they could go back and forth with Mary talking nonsense. But Mary absolutely put the kibosh on whatever stunts they were going to pull at the reunion. Whitney then goes on to say that Mary isn't affording her any respect by not showing up to the reunion to sort of parse out their differences. And I feel like this was where I kind of got irritated at Whitney, because I'm like, did you offer Mary any respect when you were spreading unfounded rumors about Mary and about Mary's church? No. Did you offer her any respect when you called her a predator? No. Did you offer her any respect when you were running around the house in Zion yelling at her to go comfort Meredith by force? No. So Whitney has no ground to stand on in order to ask for any ounce of respect from Mary. So I'm really glad Mary doesn't show her respect and that Mary pays Whitney dust. So next we see Heather chiming in on why Mary is not there. So Heather goes on to say that she actually agrees with most of the things Mary says in her confessional. She agrees especially with the part where Mary says that Lisa Barlow is sort of inauthentic. Here, I have to give it to Heather. It is true. She is right. Lisa is very inauthentic, and Mary catching that is probably one of the most honest reads Mary had in her confessional. Heather then continues on to say that she thinks that Mary should have shown up at the reunion in order to support Meredith. I don't know where Heather gets off thinking that Mary owes anyone on this cast any loyalty. And I really feel as though Heather thinks that in order for Mary to be sort of accepted into this cast, Mary must sort of be a helper, sort of like a maid, in order to ensure that all the women's needs are tended to. And I really hate that about Heather. It's like Mary is no one's mule on this cast. Fix your own life and fix your issues with other women by yourselves. Stop looking for Mary to be your backup singer when you Meredith then points out that she doesn't think that this whole show is actually good for Mary's mental health. And I do agree. I don't think that this show brings out the best in Mary. And I'm kind of glad that she's decided to take a break for now. We're still not sure if she's going to be part of the third season coming up. But I'm really glad that Mary has decided to take a break from this show, because it was not a good look for her church, or her mental health. Andy then moves on to Jen. He begins to list off her charges. I mean, she's facing conspiracy to commit wire fraud, a maximum of 30 years, and conspiracy to commit money laundering, which faces an additional 20 years. Her trial starts March 7th, so we might actually get some updates regarding Jen's case while this reunion is still airing. Maybe that's why Bravo actually put it as a 3-part, so that we would be more inclined to tune in while Jen's case is actually starting. I feel like Jen Shah is low-key delusional, because if I was facing what seems like 50 years in prison, I would not be on this show. And she even mentions that her counsel sort of advised her not to come on this show's second season. But I feel like the main reason why she's on this show's second season is so that she can have a little bit of money to pay for her legal fees. So Andy confronts Heather about Jen calling her an ogre and why she was so quickly to forgive Jen. So Heather kind of says that, when Jen has a problem with you, she's sort of honest and says it to your face, unlike Lisa, which I can agree with. Heather then goes on to say that Lisa has been calling her names in a friend chat that she's in. She called Heather a Lego, which was so funny, because they then pulled up the picture that Lisa used in the group chat to reference to Heather, and it was kind of accurate. Heather is sort of shaped oddly. Heather also goes on to say that she'd rather be called Shrek an ogre than have her friend of 10 years call her, the H word, which is what Lisa used in reference to Meredith. Lisa then starts saying, you know what, tell everyone all the horrible things you said about me. And it's like, Lisa, if Heather has said anything horrible about you, just show the proof, show the text, or say what she said. Stop being cryptic about what people say about you while, throwing heavy digs at them. This is what Lisa does. And this is, again, part of the reason why I think Lisa is a very shady character on this show. So apparently the friend in this group chat is Angie. So Lisa goes on to say that, Angie thinks you're trash. Angie thinks you and your family, you're all trash. And then Heather goes on to say, you know what? We actually spent a week with them in Cabo on their yacht, where they kind of told us that they felt that way about us because of what you told them about us. We then move on to Lisa and Meredith, and this is where the show kind of got emotional for me. So Meredith started talking about her family and her family issues that she had throughout the season. She started explaining that she had some difficult difficulties with her sister. She wasn't in a good space with her sister throughout last season, and that was why she was sort of disengaged from the entire cast. Meredith also goes on to say that someone in her family was dealing with mental health issues. She was also having difficulties with her dad during the pandemic because she had to sort of be socially distanced from her dad while he was dying, I guess. So all of this just sort of brought to light that when they were talking about Meredith's dad's memorial, this must have been such a difficult time for her to hear these women speculate about her father's memorial when she didn't even have the time, or she wasn't even given the time to go visit her dad while he was dying because of the virus. And this whole memorial storyline is one of the reasons why I started to sort of distance myself from Heather and distance myself from liking both Heather and Whitney. I feel like they used Meredith's dad's memorial as a plot line. I just feel like that was low down and dirty. It's a story that should have never been brought onto the show as a storyline or as a plot line. During this whole breakdown of Meredith is where she actually acknowledges that Jen has actually been sort of kind to her this season, which I do agree with, and I think it's big of her to recognize. The person that has been least kind to her, or the people that have been least kind to her, Meredith, has been Lisa, Whitney, and Heather. Lisa then tries to pivot the story to say that she has been in the middle of the conflict between Meredith and Jen. And I'm like, Lisa, you put yourself in the middle because you want to insert yourself in everyone's storyline to get more airtime and promotion for your cheap vodka. So we then move on to Jenny and the drama between Jenny and Mary. So Jenny brings up the issue of Mary mimicking her accent and saying that Meredith had nothing to say to Mary during the lunch that they had where Mary was mimicking Jenny's accent, which was a complete lie because Meredith actually told Mary, not right now, stop, let's not use accents. I just think that Jenny got on this show with the intention of making Mary her plotline. She had watched the first season of the show and sort of knew that the fans liked Mary because Mary really didn't have a lot of scenes in the first season, but she was able to come back as a housewife in the second season. So Jenny had watched that previously, and I think she had sort of had a game plan whereby, oh, I'm going to get on this show, I'm going to roll my neck and snap my fingers at the black lady on the show in order to get me airtime and fans. They also jump right into the comment that Mary made about Jenny's eyes. Now, that comment Mary made about Jenny's eyes was absolutely inappropriate, and I hope no one ever says something like that in public. It's a very prejudicial comment, and I absolutely do not condone or endorse saying something like that. But then Andy asked Meredith why she sort of backpedaled when asked whether or not the comment was offensive. Meredith then went on to explain that it was sort of not her place to say what was offensive since she wasn't the, person harmed by the statement. I do sort of agree with that. When someone is harmed by a racially insensitive comment, it is not your place to accept the apology unless you're part of that group, and it's not your place to sort of say what is offensive. I think it's widely known that that statement Mary made about Jenny's eyes was offensive, and Meredith acknowledging that during the reunion was the right move to make. But Jenny starts complaining that Meredith sort of supports Mary a little bit too much. And Meredith sort of tells Jenny, hey, I'm not Mary's keeper, which is absolutely correct. I don't know what Jenny in her mind thinks that Meredith can do to control Mary, but Jenny is absolutely delusional. I think that after Jenny's Facebook post, I really find it difficult taking Jenny seriously because she herself has some prejudicial statements and comments that she's made in her past that make her sort of suspicious. It's so funny to me how this woman knows what it feels like to have racial and prejudicial statements made towards her and how bad that makes her feel, but she has no problem posting memes and communicating racial thoughts on her Facebook page towards Black people. Meredith then goes on to expose Jenny for giving her husband used golf clubs and golf balls. If you'd remember when Mary gave Jenny those Louboutin shoes, Mary had told someone on the cast that, those shoes were really meant for Jen. So Jenny brought them back to Mary, saying that in my culture, it's offensive to give someone used items. Mary then goes on to state that although those items were bought previously, they were never used. So Meredith sort of bringing up the fact that Jenny would give her husband use golf balls was sort of funny, and just goes to show you that Jenny would do something she doesn't like to be done to her to other people. Meredith came to this reunion ready and strapped to take Jenny down, and rightfully so. She exposed Jenny's inconsistencies and lies. I guess this fool had said that she had known Meredith for a little while and that she knows that Meredith tends to ice people out. But Meredith exposed her by saying that before then, she had only known Jenny for only a week. So how would Jenny have the authority to say that she has known Meredith for a little while? Jenny just sat there looking stupid because she is stupid. So we finally begin to address Jenny's obvious black scent. I do feel as though Jenny does indeed turn up when she's talking to Mary. Mary is the only character on the show whereby when Jenny's talking to, she gets, her neck rolling, her hands flailing, blah, blah, blah. So Jenny then tries to explain this away by saying that, she was, she was raised in Long Beach, so that's why she sort of has that accent. I'm like, no. It doesn't matter that you were raised in Long Beach. It matters that the only time you use that Long Beach-esque accent is when you're talking to Mary. Why don't you use that same accent when you're talking to the other white women? Why don't you roll your neck and bop and weave when you're talking to Lisa? No, you come to Lisa respectfully. You come to Meredith respectfully. You talk to Heather and Whitney with respect. But when it comes to Mary, you decide to talk through the side of your neck. And the other thing I noticed is when they were playing the playbacks of the show and the season, Mary is the only one that Jenny has actually used curse words with. She drops the F-bomb, calls her a liar, but she never particularly drops the F-bomb with these other white women. I wonder why. They go on to ask her about the finale where she threw a glass at Mary. She then cops a plea by saying she didn't throw it at Mary, she threw it at the floor. Again, this woman is just so pathetic. I just don't want to spend my time, analyzing her actions and how aggressive and violent they were. And then she went on to say if she wanted to hit Mary, she could have hit Mary, and no one on the stage batted an eye. This is just so disgusting. Even Jen Shaw looked at her kind of like weirdly after she said that. I think that Jen Shaw knows that Jenny is a bit prejudicial. That's why throughout the season, you really don't see Jen Shaw really defending Jenny or Jenny's actions. Jen Shaw was actually one of the only ones that called out Jenny during this reunion regarding the tubing episode that they had where Jenny was sort of cursing at Mary out of nowhere. Jen Shaw addressed that, and I think that was pretty big of Jen Shaw, especially knowing that Jen Shaw and Mary had problems. And then Heather hops in to say that Mary was racist. I feel like this was a wrong move for Heather because that statement was pretty loaded. This is exactly the reason why Mary, again, rightfully didn't show up to the reunion, because she knew that Heather and her jaw was probably just going to be yapping about her all night long. Heather really doesn't have a storyline. I feel like Heather needs to be kicked off the show. What else is she going to talk about next season? About being an ex-Mormon? We don't care. We don't care that she's an ex-Mormon. We don't care that she left the show. That she left the religion. It's good that she was able to leave the religion and find peace for herself. But again, that's not a storyline that we want to come back season after season listening to and hearing. Andy then says that he spoke to Mary last week, and she said that, she didn't think Black people were capable of being racist. And then Jenny interjects by saying they are. Everyone is capable of being racist. And I'm like, of course, Jenny, you would know because you lean towards being racist yourself. So then we move on to this Lisa versus Angie versus Heather and Whitney storyline. I really don't care about the catering incident. I mean, do I think that Lisa told the caterers not to cater Angie's event? Of course, Lisa is just that diabolical. But I think that Angie might be Mary's replacement. That is why we're seeing such a heavy concentration on Angie's storyline with Whitney, Heather, and Lisa. Then Heather and Whitney said that, they went to Cabo to celebrate Angie's 40th birthday where they were on a yacht, and then Heather goes on to say that at least Angie doesn't front like Lisa. And then Lisa goes on to say, oh, are you insulting John Barlow right now? And I'm like, who the hell is John? Like, why do we care about your husband? Who is your husband? He's not even rich. You need to go feed your family. And then that's where you need to go say, the life that you pretend to have, Angie actually has it. Heather to me just sounded like a freeloader. She sounded like someone just arms stretched out, waiting for freebies. She's a grifter. Heather then tells Lisa that she knows a lot of dirt on Lisa, but Lisa hits back by saying, I know about your DUI, Heather. Apparently, Heather had a DUI in 2012, which she didn't serve prison time for. I think her sentence got commuted. And I was like, this is news to me. One thing about Lisa is she's going to bring up dirt and throw it at your face at any time. And that's where the reunion sort of ends, guys. I don't know why, again, this reunion is 3 parts. I don't know what they're going to talk about for the next 2 parts. I mean, aside from the hot mic moment from Lisa, what else do they have to talk about? They've already spoken about Mary's incident with Jenny. I just don't know what else the women are going to talk about now that we know that Mary is not there. So yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up, share, comment below, and subscribe to the channel.